Welcome to the Winning Sometimes show, where Matt, Clint, and I share our joy and sometimes hatred of all things games, tech, and generally don't stay on topic. But what's a good story without a diversion here or there? This episode, we'll get into games that tell a great story. So, let's talk about what we like in stories and what we think makes one great. So, Matt, what do you think makes a great story in games?
In games, yeah, that's actually a really good
qualifier
there for sure. So I think there's a lot, obviously, that goes into a good game, but kind of where I attack this problem from, there we go, is very much so in the sense of, and this is just something that's personal to me, maybe other people don't have this experience, but, you know, like when you pick up a good book or whatever, and you start reading, you're like, oh, this is really good, and you keep going into it, you're like, oh, and then all of a sudden it's like 2 a.m, you're like, I've got to be at work in, 5 hours, and you're like, I can get another chapter in, like I can read another chapter, right?
That's so dangerous.
And look at Craig's face.
That's so dangerous.
Oh, 100%. I've had like days at work where I'm going on like 2 hours of sleep because I just had to finish a book. And like, so that's what, when I started thinking about this, I'm like, what are games that made me feel that same way? Where not because I'm just like, oh, the gunplay in this game is so awesome, or man, the, other gameplay aspects are so good, but just really like, oh, I need to find out how this ends. And so for me, if you can do that, put some sort of urgency to finish the game, to find out how it goes. To me, if a game can do that and make me feel that way, like that is just like a pinnacle storytelling. It's games that are absolutely spectacular at telling their story, make you want to not put them down because you need to find out what happens to the main character or the world or whatever. And so for me, that's what I would say makes a really, really compelling story in a game.
Agreed.
What games? What's the last occurrence or last game you played where that was kind of happening to you?
So that is harder to answer for a couple of reasons.
Sure.
Because I guess as far as story-driven games have gone, there's been a lot more, I guess, indie games that I've played lately. And so there is, those may run a few hours or whatever. So you're probably not going to get like, I'm not going to lose sleep over them because, it's only a couple hours.
Unless you start them late. Which is...
I'm an old man. I start things early.
Yeah,
so.
I definitely do that.
Oh, dinner at 6 p.m.? Oh, we're getting a little late. But as far as like bigger games that that I feel like have kind of done that for me, had like probably the most recent was Hellblade, like Senua's Sacrifice, because but that game was
that isn't
solid.
Really that to me is more of like a indie type game because you have the developer making it without the backing of like a big publisher. I thought, right? There's like a whole story behind its development.
Yeah. They called themselves the AAA indie developer.
Yeah,
is how
they
call themselves. Yeah, because they were all very established people. But yeah, they just didn't have necessarily like.
I am
the
Clint.
budget.
Go ahead. Very established person. I've been established for 31 years.
I feel, yeah, that's fair. Very established developers, if that's what we want to go with. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. But yeah, it's and I mean I can go into some of the aspects that I enjoyed about it, but or like I guess reflecting that back at you, what would you say, is that the same feel when you talk about a good story in a game? Is that the same kind of thing you're looking at, or
well, I've been thinking about this, and the reason I started thinking about this is because, the one game that I feel like we all kind of started with and got to know each other with is Destiny. And lately I feel like their storytelling has really taken it up a notch. So I started thinking about storytelling in games in general, and there are different ways to tell stories in game. There can be atmosphere, which I feel like Dark Souls is an example of that. there's like not much written stuff in it, but just the world building is done through the level, through the monsters,
through the sound
through
design.
the atmosphere, through the sound, and then there's like general, like, Destiny has, I think, more of a story. You have characters, you have arcs, you have climaxes, you have, lulls. So there's actual story with, like, dialogue and text and stuff like that too. And then there's games that are more, go for the more atmosphere type, like Dark Souls, like I mentioned. But I do agree, that telling a good story does take you on that journey. And a really good story are those where kind of get your grips in you, and you want to continue and see where it goes, and Destiny, for example, has been doing that to me with Crow's story. Their problem, though, is they're like on a weekly rotation, so you have to wait, which I'm not a big fan of. But I think the last AAA game that I played that really got its hooks into me was probably Horizon Zero Dawn. Like that one just was really like, and just the story was excellent. Gameplay was good, but I kept going back more to find out more about the world. And I think that had the combination of world building, with the settlements, the monsters, like why do you have mechanical dinosaurs?
And how does that even work, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, that, like, how good is the technology, and how come everyone are cavemen, basically? Like,
yes.
There's this dichotomy, and it's like, I need to know more about this.
Yeah, and it's a satisfying story. The end to me was satisfying. Like there's like an aha moment, like towards the end, where you figure out everything that's kind of happening and kind of the time frame we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it was almost like jaw dropping, like, because I'm going in the story with certain ideas of the world and like how it's set up. And then you learn more about it, and it's kind of like, it didn't blow my mind, but, I was, I went along for the journey, and I was satisfied. It was a satisfactory story and conclusion, and I wanted more at the end of it. It ended great, and I wanted more, and we're getting more now. But
I might have to get a PS5 for that, unless it comes to PC, which then I'll wait.
Yeah.
But
see, and go ahead, Matt. Go ahead, Clint.
I was gonna say Horizon Zero Dawn's on my list because it is so good, so very good, and it makes you ask those questions like, what is happening here? Why is this? Why is that? Who is the main character? Why is she different? How can she use the technology and all that stuff? Like, and there's an answer for all of it, and like. It's such a tidy story, but in an immersed, like, gameplay way. Like, the whole, it is such a perfectly executed story. I guess it's that you play through and you put yourself in and you immerse yourself in. I'm like failing to describe it that well, but it's even more of a step up beyond like a book that's just, oh, cool, and you're like. Because a book has to give you information in a linear way. And, like, some good books will cut it up into multiple stories, and they'll, like, interweave it and overlap it. And so, like, every page break or whatever, there'll be paragraphs or, like, sub-chapters where you go in, and it's a different story. And you're like, oh, well, let's check in on this character. Or this character has no idea about the other party of characters, and we're learning about this. It's like a different book in this book, and then eventually they cross paths, or what one character does affects the other in some way, and it's like that's as good as you can get with a book. But with games, it's like you are there, and it, like, some games do that too. They try and kind of like copy what books do, and that's, in my opinion, a less efficient way to have a player go through a game, is like to keep swapping them around. Like, I don't want to say Last of Us. Like, I'm not trying to start Last of Us 2 debate.
No.
Let's not talk about that game, but like they do that, and that's what I'm trying to refer to.
Last of Us 1. Have you played Last of Us 1?
I couldn't.
You couldn't?
No.
Okay.
After his daughter died. I couldn't. His daughter died at the beginning.
Okay,
Like, that's not really a spoiler because that's like.
Well, I haven't played it yet, but I hear it's great.
Okay.
And that seems like one of those.
I don't even have kids, and when you play as the daughter, and then.
Oh, don't spoil it!
It's at the it's the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, I know. I've seen videos of people crying at the first 10 minutes of the game.
I quit. I turned the game off.
10 minutes spoiled.
Sorry. I mean, if you're planning on playing that game, it's been out for 10 years. So
I have it. I just haven't played it yet. I haven't had the time. But that's one of those where it's like one of those games. I know it's good. The story is good. The gameplay is good. It's just it's a very heavy game.
It is.
And and this past year I have not been ready for anything heavy. Yeah. It's like, so it's just been putting it off and but Last of Us, the first one, I want to play because that one I've heard great things about.
Yes. And
well,
go ahead.
Matt.
Sorry. Well, so what I was going to say, I was actually going to touch on what Ronan was saying there, which I think is a very important aspect of storytelling that doesn't get talked about a lot, and that is the fact that whether the medium is video games, movies, books, whatever, when it comes to storytelling, a huge part of it is who we are at that moment. And so, like, you're talking about, like, this past year, there's certain games or books or whatever that I could have played that probably would have had a very different effect on me if I had played them 2, 3, 4 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And so who we are when we experience a story, because I know I know exactly why Hellblade was a very memorable story experience for me. One, I think it was done very well. But also I had a friend who was dealing with some similar issues in real life, and so it very much so stood out for me. And so I think that that's one of the things that we don't take into account a lot is that, yes, there are some games that just are flawless, as, Clint said, like has perfect execution in the story, and that's awesome. But there's definitely going to be games that are going to have something that hits us, like the individual, really hard in a way that wouldn't necessarily. And I think we can't really discount that, but we just kind of have to be aware that maybe we're not ready for a story, or maybe we are putting more emphasis on a story than necessarily it should have been. Like, it wasn't as great a story. It's just kind of, we just thought it was because it was nostalgic, it was memorable, whatever. It was because of something we were going through in our life. So it's really, I really like that you brought that up, Ronan. Yeah.
I mean, do you have a game that's in your mind that's like that, where when you played it, it was this great game, but then as you've gone and revisited it, it hasn't stood up as well?
So the real answer to that is no, and that's just because of the kind of human I am. Because when I have some experience like that, one of those experiences is probably Chrono Trigger, which I think, and it has, at the time, it was groundbreaking. It was nominated for all sorts of awards and everything. For those of you who don't know, Chrono Trigger was released on the Super Nintendo.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly a new game. And I absolutely adored that game. I loved the story. I loved how you interacted with the world and everything like that. And as much as I want to replay it as an adult, I basically refuse to, because I'm like, I don't want to tarnish that image of it. And that's how I kind of am with a lot of things. I'm like, no, I absolutely loved it at the time, and I don't want to go back to it because I'm afraid it'll ruin it. And I don't want to I don't want to be that person that looks back and wow, I was dumb as a kid or whatever. I just want to believe that it was actually good.
I get that. I have some games like that. But at the end of the day, yep, okay. Ronan is holding up the Chrono Trigger intro with the pendulum
on my phone.
The clock pendulum. Oh,
yep.
Oh, you have it on your phone.
Yeah.
You have the mobile version. Got it. Interesting.
So, yeah, there are a lot of old Super Nintendo, Nintendo games that they ported to mobile, which has been nice, but yeah, and it's a nice way to kind of revisit your childhood, I guess, it makes you realize like how patient we were as kids. Because man, some of the games,
Yeah.
you know, were a struggle. Are
In
a
fact,
struggle.
I replayed Final Fantasy VII last year during lockdown because
How was that?
it was absolutely excellent. Because the remake came out, and I seem to be one of the only people on Earth. I know there are dozens of us at least that did not enjoy it. And it's not like I'm saying there's no value in it, but I can't talk about it because there's spoilers involved. But at some point, it lost me. And some of the design decisions around the mechanics and gameplay just were really not fun and grating. And there was this one part where there was this kennel room and there was dogs, and it's like there's no way for me to beat this, like with the given mechanics that they have, and I just have to struggle through it and hope that I win. And I don't want to go into that because then it's like, well, how good is Clinton? Or Clint, whatever, at video games? We can't trust his opinion or whatever. I don't care. Like, for me, it was not fun. So I went back and replayed.
Clint, you have to be the one that they can trust our opinion. Like, I'm the scrub here. Don't steal my role.
Well, okay. It was like the beginning. It's like woke me up and I was like, well, this isn't that fun. And then like, am I actually having fun with the mechanics, with the real time action, button mashing stuff? I mean, it's not button mashing. There's definitely some strategy to that game, but like, am I having fun with it? And I was starting to like put my feelers out and ask that question and try to answer that. And at the end of the day, it just wasn't as compelling of a system than the turn-based RPG that Final Fantasy VII Original is. They're different systems, so I can't really compare them apples to oranges, but I came away with, no, I don't enjoy it that much. But yeah, I replayed FF7 right after that because I was like, you know what? I don't have to get into all bunched up about it being good or bad or me enjoying it or not enjoying it. I'm just going to go play the old one because I still have the old one and I can still like FF7. So I did it. And the version I played had a speed increase. Like you could increase the speed times 4 or something. So at any point you can just start speeding up. And that actually made it extremely playable. Like that experience that you're talking about where we had more patience as kids, like absolutely that's true, 100%. And some companies know that. So when they re-release these games, they're adding features like that to just, belt through all those really long load screens and all the, the intro where it takes literally 15 seconds every time you get into a randomly generated battle. So you cannot choose when to battle, then you have a 15-second penalty before you can even do anything. And if it's a really easy enemy, that just gets asinine quick. But with Final Fantasy VII, it was fine because it's like, okay, done. Okay, first move. Okay, done. Okay, that's fine. Like from beginning to end, it took 10 seconds to do, and then I get all the experience and all that crap for it. So grinding was really easy. I won't go through a review of that game, but it was fun. And it is as good as I remember. Like the story parts of it. The story beats hit. And it's actually funny because I am more emotionally developed. So like sorrow is something that I'm more attuned to. So like when Eris dies, it's like, it's sad. Yeah. A lot more sad than it was when I was a kid. I mean, it was sad. It's like, no, my party member, and also, my girlfriend, because that's how you can't let my wife hear me say that.
Yeah.
She hates Eris. She's a Tifa girl.
Oh, come on.
But Tifa's awesome. But
wait,
anyway.
hold on a second.
No, they're both awesome.
Yeah, they are.
Set the record straight there.
Thank you.
But see, now I want an episode with your wife on talking about your gaming addictions and habits. Because
oh no, no. She'll talk about Destiny, and you won't like it.
Oh yeah.
So, Clint, I have a question for you on the Final Fantasy VII because I actually think this is a really cool comparison because. You said that you didn't really like the story changes. You didn't really necessarily like the story in Remake, right? But original, the story was solid and actually probably more impactful than when you were a kid. So I guess the question there is, do you think that if the story from original had been in remake, it would have, I don't want to say overrided, but it would have kind of canceled out, I guess, the mechanics you didn't like? Would you have kept playing it, even just in spite of the mechanics you didn't like?
I don't know. That's a good question. I want to say yes, but I can't know for sure. Because then, I might be like, this is kind of a drag. Why did they do this? Bad decision. Come on, game makers, please. Like, why would you make it worse?
But I don't know, like my feeling about like the remakes or the redos are kind of like the movies, like when they remake a movie from like 10 years ago, I feel like it's never as good.
Right.
Because they're trying to capture the magic of what it was then. But it doesn't transition to how we are now, I feel.
Okay. I would agree with you, except that video games are digital assets. When it comes to an actor, actors grow and age, right? You cannot have Brad Pitt from Fight Club, right? Remake Fight Club right now.
Well, I don't mean that, but like like what's a remake, like the one with Mars? Oh gosh, Total Recall.
Yeah.
Like
I don't think it can be done.
No, because like the story they told was a story, right? And with kind of the influences of the 80s of that time.
Yeah.
So they bring it to the 20s that we're in now. And they have to update it because they can't, have that same, like there's that one, Footloose, that remake. I mean, who remembers that? No one.
Sorry, we all have opinions about this.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. Go.
I would like to respond and continue my point about digital assets. Like you can't remake Fight Club with Brad Pitt now, but you can remake a game by updating it to today's technology and standards and art, right? You can do the same thing and use the same story and even the same, it would be kind of lame, but if you use the same voice acting from like a PS2 game or something, like you could do it. There are ways to do it. There are ways to upscale assets. Like the Final Fantasy VII mods for PC, the PC version are amazing. Mm-hmm. You can get, they're like 300 or 200p originally is what the game assets were in. And you can upscale them to 4K now. Like there are technological ways to remake a game that's just amazing. And then you put in new assets and you can do new things to enhance the remake further that are still true to the original. But that's not what they do, right? Remaking a movie is, like, in my opinion, doomed to fail. It can be done successfully, but it is like it's like let's say you're a father, right? And you go to the theme park with your kid, and it's like, it was a beautiful day, and we went to get Dippin' Dots, and we went to ride this, and then we got cotton candy after that, and it's like, this is so fun. I remember it so well, and your son is just like, man, that was such a good day, and they just hold on to that memory forever, and it's like, yes, I loved that. That was great. And then, 15 years later, you go back and, hey, son, let's go relive the theme park day. And we'll do all the same things. We'll get Dippin' Dots, and then we'll go ride this ride, and then we'll go get cotton candy. It's not going to fall. It's not the same thing. You have to do something different, but is still true to the original. I mean, it's a bad example because it's a theme park, right? Who's going to enjoy a theme park later? But
I feel like we're getting insights into like Clint's childhood. Someone took him to a theme park at one point.
But okay, hold on. So, but what you're describing with the remake, that's basically Elder Scrolls. That got released 20 years ago, and they've redone it every couple of years and re-released it. I mean, at that point, it's just the same game with improved visuals. I guess I'm thinking more of a remake where they try to take the original game and maybe kind of like, I guess, do like a movify it. Which maybe, like you're saying, isn't going to work, but. Like Elder Scrolls, how many times have you released that? How many times have you bought Elder Scrolls at this point? And they're going to release it again, like in a month or two.
The anniversary edition. Yeah.
Are you going to buy it?
No, because all they're doing is repackaging mods.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I would argue that those versions aren't remakes. They're not even remastered. I mean, they're remasters
They're just
more than
crappy
remakes.
clones.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they really aren't recreating it with today's technology. Like, if that were the case, they would have a new engine. They would have new art assets. They don't. Like, all they're doing is enhancing those textures. They're enhancing the resolution of the existing stuff, and it's more of a remaster, which is just put a new filter on it, put it on the latest system or platform, and then release it. It's like very different from a remake versus remaster, which maybe that's a podcast topic.
Yeah.
Quite possibly. Now, on that, as far as like the story in those games go, do you think that you could, and we're getting kind of way philosophical with this even more than we are here. Do you think it's possible to take a game made in a certain time period that had a good story and everything like that, and successfully, without just like copy pasting all the assets, and successfully, make it into a game like 20 years down the road or anything like that? Or do you think that like the world and the audience changes too much for that story to kind of like, 'cause like books, there's some stories that are classics or whatever. Like you just go to the library, like, I would like the classic section, please. And you've got Dracula and Frankenstein and all that sort of stuff.
Right. They're timeless.
Do you think, yeah, they're timeless. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Do you think there's like a story in video games that could be a timeless kind of thing and could have just remake after remake or whatever be spun off of it, kind of like a Dracula story has, or is the medium too different to support that?
I think that's hard to say because timeless books, like, I'm no professor of literature. Like, I don't know what makes a timeless thing timeless. Like, I'm sure it has something to do with there's something story structure and the hero's coming of age or whatever that is, like the classic hero story. It was like, okay, things follow the same story beats and then relate to people in different ages because it appeals to human nature and human nature doesn't change or whatever, that kind of stuff. I'm sure there is. Like, obviously, games about sci-fi are going to be kind of hamstrung by the same thing that books about sci-fi are, which is like, is the story believable? It's like, oh, well, yeah, I'm harnessing phlogiston from the environment and we're using our, whatever, and it's supposed to be hard sci-fi. And it's like, well, that's been disproven or whatever. It's not going to work now. But other...
Well, here's a kind of a side. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Clint,
Sure.
Has there been, apart from Final Fantasy VII, any other remakes of games? I mean, there have been re-releases, but have they actually tried to redo, like, the game to that extent?
They remade Resident Evil. I can't remember which one, but one of the Resident Evils a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, they remade it and then also added in like new cutscenes and things like that. I never played either one of them, so I really can't comment on it, but I do know that it exists because I watch a lot of YouTube.
Okay. So my opinions on those aren't super valid because I didn't play the originals. I watched them be played. So I guess I have some kind of relationship to it, but I love the remakes, like Resident Evil 2 and 3. Like, yeah, I think Resident Evil 3 is a little bit more controversial because a lot of hardcore fans are a little disappointed, but those were fantastic and fun to play, and they updated the control scheme. They updated the claustrophobic camera. They still kind of achieved that, but it didn't make it as terse. Like, they didn't have a fixed camera. Yeah, it was really good. That's a good example.
That is a good example. Yes, I played the originals. I haven't played the new ones yet.
100%.
And I think I've played all of the old ones, even Code Veronica. I never played 4 or 5. Just those didn't seem like my Resident Evils.
Yeah.
So this one just occurred to me. In video games, the closest thing I think we really have to a timeless story, a story that has been translated, a zillion times over the past 40 years, is a plumber's girlfriend getting kidnapped by an angry turtle.
Wait,
Well, okay.
gorilla or turtle?
That's
True,
not.
true.
That's not a story.
Tell me I'm wrong. There's so much.
There was no story. I
there.
have to go here, and I got there, and now I saved the princess. And I mean, I guess there are player stories, but in terms of like a narrative, it's a one sentence narrative. I don't know. I guess
No,
sorry.
I completely agree
I'm
with
processing your words, and I'm like not there yet. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I would say on the same vein, Legend of Zelda has been around almost the same amount of time.
Agree.
And it's arguable. You could make the argument that it tells the same story every time, which is great evil rises, given a grand quest, you go out, gather the Triforce in some way, whether it's a bunch of mirror shards or a bunch of map pieces or whatever throughout the different games, and then you attain the Triforce power, and then you overcome the evil. Like that's the same story throughout almost every single Zelda game. I say almost because Majora's Mask exists. And that's
that one does depart just a touch.
Yeah. A lot.
But then are all games where like we're the main character, play the main character, are they all like that hero's journey type of story then? You know, because like most of the games, it's
no.
Well, I mean, you know, maybe not the indie games so much, but it just seems like a lot of the games that we've been talking about, you know, you have the main character who's kind of learning the world as we're learning it, you know, like Horizon Zero Dawn, you know, that's the hero's journey. She comes into the world not knowing, and we play her discovering the world. We discover it as she discovers it, you know. Destiny has that same kind of feel.
From Destiny 1, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think.
I would say it's a very effective way to tell a story. So it's often used.
Yeah, because you know they can do exposition dump, you know, as part of you learning about the world. You know, I'm just trying to think like. Well, I guess the one I first mentioned.
Let me look at my Steam list real quick.
Yeah.
And,
well, are you looking for a counterexample? Because I have one.
Well, no. But yeah, I was. But like, yeah, I can think of a couple. But I was joking mostly.
So I would say a direct counterexample to that is it all the hero's journey is Inside, which is a 2D platformer. Well, it's a 3D platformer, so left to right. Mm-hmm. And you're just a boy, and you go from left to right, and that's the story. And the game ends when you go all the way right, and you can't go right anymore. And that's like the most condensed or the most bare bones way to tell that or to describe that story. But
did a turtle capture your girlfriend? Is that why you're going to the right?
No, it's because there are dogs that are going to eat you if you stay in the same place.
But also good motivation.
Yeah.
But even in that game, though, like you're still discovering the world as the boy's discovering it, aren't you? Like,
but there's no grand purpose.
No, well, I'm just talking about like, you know, like the gameplay or the story elements of it.
Sure.
Kind of has you, you know, discovering it along with the character.
Which, I mean, that's the character perspective, right?
Yeah.
It could be a self-generated game like Oblivion or something, or Elder Scrolls games in general, where you create the character yourself and then you are that character. Or whether it's a created character, a character that exists already that you get to know and then also learn through the lens of the character. The character is always a foil. In fact, I'd be interested to think about games in which you don't follow a character.
Yeah.
I guess like arcade games.
Strategy games, maybe?
Yeah.
But even those have like, don't they have like story campaigns and stuff where you're the country and you're the president or whatever?
Sometimes they do.
Yeah.
Not always, but yeah, definitely sometimes.
Unlike puzzle games don't have a character, usually. Unless you're playing something like Monument Valley. But then the narrative isn't really important. I want to go back to a point that we were making at the beginning. And I'm having trouble remembering it, but we started talking about Last of Us, and I was talking about switching perspectives in characters and how I don't like that, and I don't think it's effective.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember. No, sorry, I don't remember what I was going to say. So I'll stop there. But I did remember what.
On that point, I agree.
Thank you. I did want to say that, like, my favorite way to experience a game. I mean, there are many different ways to tell a story, whether it's through the hero's journey or following a character. There are many ways to tell a good story. I think my favorite way, and I've said this before, which is immersive narrative or world narrative, in which you experience, like, there's storytelling through details and how the mountains look, and because if you change the mountains from what you would expect in real life, there's a story there, like why are the mountains different, or that's not a very good example, but I guess I like my narrative. I like to soak in my narrative like an hot tub, right? I want it to be strong. I want it to just relax in it, and I want to experience it at my pace. And so, like, oh crap, there was a game. Oh, I was going to talk about Destiny a little bit, because Destiny is not very good at telling a primary narrative. But what it does have is a ton of secondary narrative or world narrative. The Grimoire, which is like the best thing to ever suck. Like, the Grimoire is a collection of stories. A collection of
like lore.
Information bits, like codex, that aren't even in the game. You have to, like, unlock them in the game and then go read them in a companion site on Bungie.net. Like, it was terrible.
It's not like that anymore.
It used
Make sure
to be.
you're
I'm
specifying.
talking about
Yeah,
Destiny
it used
1.
to be. It
Well,
used
yeah.
to be.
Talk about Destiny 1. Stop
but it kind
defending
of still
Destiny.
is, because all the story's hidden behind armor and weapons now,
Yeah.
And, like, if you don't remember to go look, you miss a lot of that.
Right, which I don't want to start talking about, whether that's good or bad for Destiny, but what I'm trying to say is, like, the Grimoire was excellent. Learning about things in the Destiny world, like, the world could only, like, playing through the game, you could only learn so much about the light versus dark, and the Traveler, the agent of light, versus the darkness, which we didn't know what it was. So you have so many questions through the details of the world, and it's like, what is going on? It's like Horizon Zero Dawn, just executed worse. But you could go to the Grimoire and answer some of those questions, and they were cryptic, very cryptic, because they were recorded from characters in the universe perspective. Like, it was, I mean, the whole thing about Destiny, where the Traveler is this giant sphere. It's like an artificial moon that comes to our solar system, and it sparks a golden age because it's in a hyper advanced being that shares technology and energy with us. And then the golden age happens, and then the darkness comes, and it like fractures the solar system. And the golden age, there's so much golden age, like, mystery, like, about what we had before the fall of the darkness, the darkness coming, and then all of the all of the stories, what happened when the darkness fell, how come nobody knows anything about it, what happens, like, how did the Guardians happen, like, all that information you can find out, at least, sort of piece together a view, or, like, an idea of what those micro stories or world stories are about. The universe is kind of developed through the Grimoire, and that was unfortunate that it had to be in that form, but it was so excellent, and I really enjoyed that.
The lore is still excellent behind all the armor pieces and weapon pieces. It's still really good.
Well, that's good enough.
But I feel like the storytelling in game has gone. There's still, like, walls of text you have to read, but I just feel like the story has gotten a lot better, and I care about people more now in game because of the story.
And what I'll say, with Destiny, not to spend way too much time on Destiny, but we will. One thing, what I'll say about Destiny is I completely agree. Like, Destiny 1, I will pretty much say, like, vanilla Destiny 1 especially, had effectively no story. Like, there was something in there,
gosh.
but like a good story, it was not.
Yeah.
It had a ton of good world building, which for me, I kind of separate out world building from like necessarily storytelling in games, because so there's like visual world building, which I think is fine, where like if you go to a location, it looks one way, and then you do some action in the game and you come back and it changes. I think that's really good, and that is a very good visual storytelling thing. With other world building, like we're talking about like the Grimoire, the lore cards, all that sort of stuff, where I'm having to leave the game and do something like that to figure out what's going on in the game. I understand why games do that, because you just honestly, no matter how big a studio you are, you probably can't afford to have some high dollar voice actor read all this stuff, and you probably can't pay all these devs to like animate their faces to say all these things. But for me, the in-game storytelling needs to be in-game. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but like one of the prime examples is obviously Destiny 1, but also Final Fantasy 15, which I've talked about before, where if you did not like read the freaking companion book, if you didn't watch the anime, if you didn't watch the movie, because there was actually a movie, like there were so many like external sources of media that if you didn't read them or whatever, if you hadn't spent like weeks preparing to go to the first like 10 minutes of this game, you're going to be lost. You're going to be like, I don't know what the is going on. Why do these people have powers? What's going on? And so to me, that's bad storytelling, when you have to go outside the game to kind of figure out what's going on.
I didn't read any of those things, and I was fine with
yeah,
it.
like yeah, you can still enjoy it, but like there's so much more depth
Sure.
to Final Fantasy 15, and like it makes the like what's his face, the bad guy, Arden. His story becomes so incredibly tragic and so well, and like you understand his motivations. Like you honestly, in game, you're just kind of like, all right, this guy is just kind of pissed off at the Royals because of something that happened a long time ago, and you know now he's gonna kill them all, and you know that he's just the big bad evil guy.
Stop that bad guy.
Yeah, but if you look in, like if you go outside the game,
Yeah.
which you shouldn't have to do, there's like he has this really tragic story, and it makes a lot of sense why he wants the Royals dead and everything like that. And you really, like, I feel like every well-written evil guy should, you like question, you're like, like I feel bad for this guy. Like, do I really want to kill him? Because he's just like, yeah, he did some really crappy stuff, but like,
And he's trying to destroy the world and bring darkness.
yeah, but
eternal darkness.
would I have made a different decision if I were in his position?
Yeah.
Like, so it's yeah. So for me, if you have to go out of the game for storytelling, quote unquote, the devs have probably not done a great job at it.
Sure.
Well, like there's Halo, and I enjoyed the Halo story, but it had additional story outside of the game, but I felt like it enhanced it as opposed to be necessary to enjoy the game itself.
Yeah.
You know, like the all the books that they came out afterwards. Oh, they're I enjoyed them a lot. Like I liked the expansion on John,
Absolutely.
Master Chief, the Spartan program and stuff. But I don't know. I see it. The Final Fantasy is another one of those games that I kind of want to play. 15 that I want to play now.
Yeah, please do. And sorry we spoiled it on episode 1.
Did we spoil it though?
I think we did, yeah.
You
We talked about
probably-
a big part. It was the... Well, never mind. We don't have to spoil it again.
Yeah, don't spoil
The
the game.
campfire scene?
I will say that I kind of disagree. At least I am okay with that kind of thing. You know, if the story bleeds into outside of the game, I am okay with that with a caveat. Like, I just want story. And I want either a story told through the universe. I want to know more about the universe. I want to know why, you know, it's interesting. And as long as there's enough in the game to get a glimpse of the, you know, the depth of the mystery, I'm willing to go outside of the game to learn more. And I like, for instance, in Destiny 1, having the Grimoire give me glimpses of what happened and just how like big what the scope of the Golden Age fall was, that was so interesting to me. I could read the Grimoire for hours. I actually bought last PAX that I was at 2019. I bought the big book of Grimoire. It's like literally hardbound, freaking 2 inches thick. It's great. And yeah.
So and again, I know I don't say this often, but I agree with you to an extent.
Yeah.
I agree with Emiliano more. Oh, wait, he's on this side or whatever. I agree with Emiliano more because very much so I feel like the Grimoires in Destiny 1 were like a necessary thing to understand the story. And when it becomes necessary to go outside the game to get that story, that's where I think it's a failing. If it is just a bonus, like Emiliano was saying, it's like, oh, it's like bonus Halo movie and it, gives you a little more backstory and everything, that's fine. But if it is something where I'm like, I really don't understand why this is happening unless I've watched the movie, unless I've read the book, I'm very much so not okay with that.
Yeah. I guess the best way I can put it is that when it comes to video games, I am fundamentally an explorer. Like, I like going to the next peak, and I like having a reason to do it. I think I talked about this in our After Hours episode.
Yeah.
And if the game has enough there to keep me engaged, if it's got good mechanics and, a core story, like Destiny 1 story was absolutely like a high school stage play and how simple it was. But there was enough, and the gameplay was compelling, so that was enough for me. But then when you add the extra flavor of being able to learn more about the depth of the world and how it works, that was like going over to the next peak for me. So if a game doesn't have enough to keep me playing, obviously that's not going to work for me. If there is no depth, that's when I'm like, well, all these mountains look the same. I'm not really that concerned about getting to the next peak.
Here's a question that I have. So like, there's the Avengers online game, and I've heard it has a great story, a horrible end game. Do you feel that Destiny 2, we'll say with Destiny 2, do you think it would make a better single player game story-wise? Or do you think it's fine as it is now, online, with the story kind of spread out the way it is now?
Hang on. I want to tackle that one.
Yeah. Well, for both of you.
Well, because Clint has his thinking face on. So I'll let him. I think Destiny 2, so Destiny as a whole, the franchise, is a great example of games that do everything right and everything wrong at the same time, or consecutively or whatever. Like, they've nailed some things they have completely missed. And in my opinion, because of the way that Destiny is kind of made, I don't know how else to say that, it can have a mediocre story and still have it be very compelling. Because the way that Destiny does things is, for some reason, they have like top-notch artists and everything. They have top-notch music, and they have top-notch voice actors, things like that. Mm-hmm. And then some reason they're just like, hey, you over there, Dev, write us some scripts or whatever. And he's like, but I speak C++, I don't speak English. And, and they still just like, whatever, man, you can come up with it. But the thing of it is, as long as it's, and I know I'm being really harsh on the writing team, and they have done a fantastic job, but we all know, like, for those of you out there who have played Destiny, who suffered through, like, in Curse of Osiris, Warmind, Vanilla D1, like, you know where I'm coming from on this. But the difference is that Destiny or Bungie employs such high quality people around that story that they can have a crappy story and execute it so well that the vast majority of people who aren't gonna, like, Clint like dive face first into the pool that is Destiny and drown himself in it, who aren't going to consume every piece of media. Most kind of people are like play the single player campaign, like, oh, that was pretty good. I'm cool with it, but there's not a whole lot of depth there once you get beyond the surface level of, what's his name? Noel Android, being the ghost and the drifter. Once you get past those great performances, you're like, oh, now that I kind of think about this, there's a lot of holes in this story and it doesn't make a ton of sense and things like that. So I think Destiny spackles over a lot of its plot holes with great performances, in my opinion.
What do you think, Clint?
I don't think that it would work. I don't think a Destiny game would be a good single player game because I feel like the original vision for Destiny 1 was to have player moments be shared. And the whole idea of a fire team and the idea of world events, public events, and going into strikes together, like, I guess they really kind of strayed from that vision immediately, which is, reason for a reasonable amount of salt from me about the writing team as well. But I don't know, it was the first kind of game that wasn't an MMO where you could just waltz into a region, start doing a story mission, and then have other guardians pop up, other people pop up, help you fight this boss, help you fight this, event where this attack of the fallen, they're bringing down their drop ships, and it's like, oh crap, we have this war mind, which is a giant AI, that protector of Earth that just fell down. It used to be in orbit, and now it fell down. We got to save it. Like, obviously that has worn off, and they've reused that event so many times, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of times maybe, since 2014 when the game came out. But the first time it happened for me, that was like, wow, this is awesome. Like, this golden age protector of humanity has fallen down, and I'm banding together with real people to save this thing. Like, it had meaning for me. If I was to do, like, I guess the majority of, because the story of Destiny 1 is so simple, I don't think it would work, because, like, for me, the moments of Destiny are when playing with people. And I mean, that's why I know you too. Yeah. And that's why I know all the tacos. Like, I never used to make friends online. I never used to put myself out there. It was amazing. Now Destiny 2 is, I think, got more going for it, but I think at the end of the day, it's still like designed to be played with people. And the story is designed to be shared, I think.
So kind of what I'm hearing there is you're saying like the experience of Destiny 2 is
the gold of Destiny. Yeah.
Yeah, it is not dependent on its story in any way. And so that's kind of what I got.
Yeah, kind of. Like the story is weak, and it always has been. The lore, like the
story's weak, bro.
The world building has been a strength in the past. And I suppose a lot of people think it's getting better now. I haven't engaged with that yet because I quit Destiny for a while and I'm still kind of on the edge. But
I feel like Witchkin might be a good time to come back.
Yeah. Well, the fact
he's already back.
Huh?
We played Destiny 2 nights ago?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've been playing.
Oh, okay. Well,
Ronan, so you better log in.
Well, yeah. Well, we crossplay. I want to try that too. But so I want to answer my own question that I kind of posited to you guys. Because the actual story and the lore, I really enjoy in Destiny, right? I just feel that the implementation of it has been lacking, and I think part of that is because they're trying to make it a shared experience, So in order to make it shared, they kind of have to make it as bland as possible so nothing changes, so everyone can run through the story beats, and have the same things happen to them. But then you get a situation where, I'm running the same strike for the 1,000th time, and the same stuff happens. So I don't know, like I've always in my mind felt that I think Destiny would be an amazing single-player story game because it has a lot of good story, and I feel like, not having to worry about the next person coming down the line behind me, they would be able to change and, do things to the world that
I feel like, Ronan, you're going to loop back to one of your own points about remakes. And that is like Destiny as a single player game would probably be obviously would be a completely, totally different experience, different game. It would have to be basically redone from the ground up. And in my opinion, include a lot of those story beats that you might miss if you don't read things.
But see, I don't think it would be totally different though, because as it is, we're always presented as the hero guardian or the savior of everybody. We're always at the center of all the cutscenes. We're always at the center of everything.
For
even
some reason,
cooperatively. Go ahead.
Sorry, for some reason I took your question as with what content Destiny has now, would it be a good first-person game, like single-player game?
Yeah.
Which, no, I don't think it would. If they were to focus more on the single-player experience and take all of the Grimoire, take all of the alternate stories and the flavor text, and give you some way to engage with the stories of old, because there are many of those in Destiny.
Oh yeah.
I think it would be an amazing game. I just would be done with it in a couple weeks.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Yes, but you probably would remember that story more, But yes, you're probably done with it a lot quicker, And they want to make the money, all the money. So,
well, at some point I'll have to tell y'all about my vision of a Destiny extended universe kind of thing, because I really think Bungie could go full Marvel universe on it and have multimedia in every media.
Movies,
why not a Guardians of the Galaxy? Why not a Guardian of the Galaxy style Guardian team that became Guardians and then they went out with an awoken fleet ship or something, and they pushed out to the edge of crap, what's the Imperial race?
What?
The Imperial?
Cabal?
No, the species. The different race.
Awoken?
No, the big sturdy guys.
The Cabal.
That's the Cabal.
That's the Cabal.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you say it. Yeah, break out to the edge of Cabal space, and then you can see how the Leviathan was made. The Leviathan
there's a lot of good story
Millennium ship or whatever
in Destiny. They just are focusing on this game instead. But
and there's obviously, it looks like they've taken some time and are probably going to continue Destiny for a much more extended time than they had initially planned. For those of you who keep up with that sort of stuff, they did kind of announce some new expansions or whatever, the final shape, so it may be a ongoing kind of universe, but only time will tell. But I think that would be a very financially successful venture for them, and I think it would be, if done right, could be absolutely amazing, but still not storytelling in my opinion, because you go outside the game.
So we absolutely spent way too much time talking about Destiny because we all love Destiny.
I told you
a lot.
we would. I'm sorry. I warned
that was
everyone.
my fault.
So in an effort to pull back and sort of circle back on the beginning of the episode, Ronan, you asked a question. What's one of those games that you just couldn't wait to find out what happened next? Do you have a game like that?
See, I was going to ask you guys this as our kind of our final question of the night. I feel like the closest thing or the most recent thing would be Horizon Zero Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely one of the games that I kept coming back to and kept wanting to play. But I just feel like there's other ones. I just they're slipping my mind right now. But I feel like that's the most recent. So I'll just say Horizon Zero Dawn.
Okay.
How about you guys?
The first grade that I ever accidentally let slip, because I've always been really studious about school, do it, get it done, get the good grade. The first one that actually suffered from a video game was in high school. Senior year, I had one of my underclassmen hand me an Xbox copy of Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and I had never heard of that series. I never really played Star Wars games since like, what did I play? I think Rebel Assault and X-Wing. Like those types of games. Those are great games, but they're arcade games from the 90s.
Yes.
So I hadn't really seen what had been done in like narratively with Star Wars and video games since. So that game blew my mind. Like,
oh yeah,
it was like, there's so much Star Wars in this. How like Dantooine and frickin' like Jedi are here, and who am I? And then the whole twist with Revan, and like it. Although that I've said that one didn't really blow my mind, that twist, but the game itself, yeah, I sort of accepted it immediately. Because my knee-jerk reaction was like, no, I'm still good. It doesn't matter what I did. I'm gonna atone for it. I'm good, no question. But that game, I could not wait to get home every single day after cross-country practice and play more of that game. Nice. And just spend as much time as I could in that world. And every character was well written, and it just blew my mind, and I was sad when it was done. Oh yeah. And because I had to get back to work with school, but and I had to give the game back, but I wouldn't say that there are that many games. Like, it doesn't happen that often anymore where I'll have a game that's just so burning that I want to play it when I go to bed, and I want to play it when I wake up before work. If I had to think of a... I don't think it's happened in a while. Oh, Fallen Order was pretty dang good. I wanted to play that one, like, really bad.
I want to play that.
So basically, Star Wars games is what I'm hearing. Single player, story driven Star Wars games is what gets Clint.
Yep. I mean, it's such a good. It's like sci-fi. I love sci-fi. And then there's the grand purpose and the mystery and the mysticism of the Jedi and the Force. And
wait, so Andromeda did nothing for you?
No.
Yeah.
No, and we can talk about Andromeda later.
Yeah. Well, Matt, how about you?
So I've already talked about probably the big ones I could think of, which was Hellblade and Chrono Trigger. But the one I actually thought of while we were talking, and that this feeds back into the timeless story of Mario, was Super Mario World RPG. I have no idea why I was so engrossed with that as a child, but I think the big thing for me was, and sorry, spoilers on like a 25-year-old game or whatever, is that, you're playing as Mario, this timeless plumber who always has his girlfriend kidnapped by Bowser. And in the first hour, you team up with Bowser because the bad guy is so much more bad that you have to team up with Bowser, and Bowser's going to help you take him down. That's how big a threat this guy is. And so, it was probably one of the worst RPGs ever, but I know one of the things for me is I have to find out why, how is this guy so bad that I'm working with Bowser?
That's funny.
And so that's probably one of the other games that I can think of. But yeah, Hellblade, Super Mario RPG, and Chrono Trigger are probably the big ones for me.
Nice.
Very cool.
So actually, before I close out, I just wanted to give you guys 2 books that I really love, that kind of have different type of storytelling: House of Leaves and Last Exit to Brooklyn. So if you guys ever get a chance to read those books, I want you to read them and tell me what you think about them.
What are they about?
So we're getting homework now.
Well, no. House of Leaves is about a house that's inside is bigger than the outside, basically.
Okay.
And Last Exit to Brooklyn, it's like about a group of New York hoodlums, but it's all written in it. The whole book is just dialogue. There's no it's just people talking, but the way it's written and how each person is written, you get to know each person through the writing. And it's just I was surprised. I remember reading it, I was like, what? There's no punctuation, there's no nothing, but you start recognizing who's talking by how they are written in the book. So but excellent book by Herbert Selby Jr. So
Interesting.
if you guys get a chance, I want to hear your thoughts on that. Speaking about stories, so
You're gonna have to drop me that in a DM because I have a big list of books to read right now, and I'm avoiding them because generally I don't continue reading a book unless it's the kind that I cannot put down.
Okay.
And
Well,
I have a bunch that are just stacked up, right, waiting. I have stuff to do, so I can't be reading right now.
all right. But yeah, I'll make a notation of it and forward it off to you. So
Cool.
but okay. Unfortunately, every story needs to be wrapped up, and we're no J.J. Abrams, so note to self: don't let Matt write our exits. Sorry.
That was a great line. You
Oh
knew that.
gosh, no. As always, let us know how we're wrong. What do you think makes a great story in a game? What great games did we miss? Tell us in the comments on YouTube, Winning Sometimes Show, where we'll have video for this and other episodes. We have Twitter at WSometimeShow. We sometimes win games on twitch.tv/winningsometimeshow. Or you can yell at our email inbox with show@winningsometimes.com. And finally, we have a website, winningsometimes.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.
Bye.